Hello and welcome in to Double Coverage with Jacquie and Kassidy for episode 3. We're so excited to have you back with us. Of course, this week I guess it's more of a single coverage or a single high coverage. And I know that term still gives a little bit of the heebie-jeebies to Gator fans because it got you in trouble a few times last year in certain games. But moving on, it is just me, Kassidy, this week. We are without Jacquie. She just needed to be with her family. We hope to be joined by her again next week. But please, just if you can, keep Jacquie and her family in your prayers this week. We hope to see them again very, very soon. But, like I said, just me tonight. But I am joined by a couple of guests. I'm really excited to have them here. We're going to talk some spring football for the Gators. What is next for the Florida football program in terms of just creativity and marketing and what the program's going to look like with the name, image, and likeness law passing. We also are joined by Graham Hall of the Gainesville Sun to talk a little Florida basketball and what the future of the Florida basketball program looks like now that they were knocked out of the round of 32 in this past weekend's NCAA Tournament. And then a little bit into spring football. We're going to hear what Mullen had to say after the Gators' final scrimmage on Saturday, and I'll tell you where you can read more about that later. First, let's dive right into something that apparently was a hot topic over the weekend. Got a lot of y'all going, and I knew it was going to cause controversy. I knew it was, but you know what? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. On Saturday, when talking to Dan Mullen after the scrimmage, I made the comment that I think The Replacements is the best sports movie ever made.
Well, the greatest sports movie of all time is The Replacements, and I'll die on this hill. Don't give me that look.
I mean, isn't that like, is that Keanu Reeves?
Yes, in his pinnacle role.
Okay, I mean, that's coming from a Keanu Reeves fan right there. And I'm a Keanu Reeves fan. I trust me, man. Point Break, man, awesome.
Well,
I mean, but to call Replacements better, to say he was better in Replacements than Point Break, come on.
Look, you're streaming live. I'm not going to prove you wrong on that.
Okay, if you're not in there watching film and you don't know how to watch the film and what you're specifically looking for, you're not really developing. You're just, like I told our guys, you might as well be watching SpongeBob SquarePants, right? Or watching The Replacements. Like you're not, I don't know if you're getting much out of that. I mean, what to do.
Boy, did that get met with a lot of criticism on Twitter, which I knew it would. That's because you're all wrong and you don't understand true art. But I wanted to come back and address it and just kind of say a little bit about why I think it's the best sports movie, because it's hard to explain yourself in 280 characters on Twitter. What do you want in a sports movie? You want a plucky underdog, an unlikely origin story or a fall from grace, if you will, and a chance to return to those heights. A love story with a cheerleader that is completely unnecessary to the plot line, an older jock who's just a complete jerk, a play that would never actually work in real life, and a team that wins based purely on heart. Miles and miles of heart. That's everything The Replacements has. Plus, it's funny. If you can make me laugh, I'm going to watch that movie over and over again, which is probably why I can quote The Wedding Crashers for you. But a lot of you had opinions on what is a better sports movie, and a lot of you had opinions on about 50 movies that you think are better sports movies than Replacements. I did take some of that into account, but I was going to come back and tell you what I think are my favorite sports movies and my best sports movies, because it's just me this week and we're going to fill some time. So, and this is my show, I can make the rules. They are going to be different. Favorite are movies that I can just watch over and over and over again. If it's on TV, I'm watching it. Best are what I can understand and say, yes, they are a great sports movie. They have everything you need. And those are ones that deserve to be in the echelon of great sports movies. They're not all award winners. That's okay. I'm sure you will all vehemently disagree with me on the majority of these. Also okay. I'm still right. Let's go top to bottom. And I'm going to start with what I think are the best. Actually, we're going to start with honorable mention. Honorable mention on the best of all time. I'm putting The Natural. I just think it's a great movie. It's Robert Redford in his prime. I love Robert Redford. Again, has everything you need, and the shot at the end when he knocks out the lights. That would never happen in real life. That's what makes it such a great movie. Honorable mention on the favorites. Maybe I'm in the mood for this one because we're coming up on the NFL draft. But I'm going to go Draft Day. I just think it's a cool look into NFL teams. And I know some of it is amped up for Hollywood. Don't care. Still think it's good. If you put Kevin Costner in a sports movie, it's good. automatically. And then Little Giants. Classic. Someday a team is going to run the annexation of Puerto Rico, and it's going to work, and it's going to be beautiful. Okay, going up the list on best. I'm going to, at number 5, I'm going with Moneyball. Brad Pitt can do anything anyways, but making him play Billy Bean and kind of explain a section of the sport, or a part of the sport that changed baseball, but really changed football. It changed every sport with what Billy Bean was able to do in Oakland. And I think that's a really cool look into it all as well. And then number 5 on the favorites. Some of you have probably never heard of this movie, but you should go watch it. It's excellent. Stroke of Genius. It's the Bobby Jones story. Again, it's not going to win any awards. It's probably just like one of those made-for-TV movies if I had to go back and research it. It's got Jesus, Jim Caviezel, so you should know it's good. I watch it every year before the Masters. It just really, it made me see golf in a whole new way, and it really made me appreciate what Bobby Jones was able to do to get golf to the point where it became one of the biggest sports in the world. And it's a great look into O.B. Keeler. Guys, O.B. Keeler is one of the coolest writers of all time. I love O.B. Keeler. I mean, my gosh, this canvas up here is the text of one of O.B. Keeler's game stories when Auburn played Georgia, and I think it's one of the finest pieces of sports journalism ever written. O.B. Keeler is excellent. He was Bobby Jones' biographer. That movie, Stroke of Genius, watch it before the Masters this year. You'll see the game in a whole new way. Okay, number 4 on the best. I've got my list over here. I'm sure this will cause some controversy because I replaced another Kevin Costner movie for this one. Bull Durham. Bull Cassidy, what about Field of Dreams? Cut it. Bull Durham's better. And maybe that's because I worked in minor league baseball for a little while, so I have an appreciation for what all those guys go through. I loved Bull Durham. Gives a look into a team. And the scene where they wanted to not play the next day, and so they had the sprinklers flood the field. I've heard minor league players talk about doing that, and they get the idea from that movie. Number 4 on my favorites. This is such a good one. Making sure I spell it right. I don't know why. It's an easy word. Rookie of the Year. Again, if it's on TV, I'm watching it every time, hands down. The hidden ball trick. I don't know if y'all remember, but there was like a few years ago, back in like 2012, 2013, 2014, somewhere in that span, like 2 or 3 teams did it within a season. And it was just beautiful. To quote Ted Lasso, that's where sports and arts combine. Okay, number 3 on the best. Sandlot. Could also put Rookie of the Year here, possibly. But I'm going to go with Sandlot. It's everything you remember about being a kid and playing out in the yard with your siblings or your friends, or it's everything you wanted as a kid, and when you watch it, you're instantly transported back to that time. And that's why I love the shot at the end, like when it's the major league game, but it's also the Sandlot. It's just, it's gonna make me cry just thinking about it. On the favorites, of course, unsurprisingly, we go in Sandlot again at number 3. On the best, let's see. This one is probably number 1 for a lot of people. I'm putting it at number 2, but you'll see why when I get to number 1. Remember the Titans. One of the best sports movies of all time. And like I said, what some people would probably call the best sports movie of all time. The fact that it's a true story just makes it all the much richer. It's funny. It's got great music. It's Denzel Washington. It's everything you could. Hayden Panettiere, when she was a little girl. The scene where he sacks the quarterback and then he says, "Stay down there, get comfortable," something like that. It's been actually a few months since I've watched it. Is great. It's everything football should be. Okay. Number 2 on my faves. Let's see, where are we at? Miracle. Gosh, I love this movie. I love this movie. Again, kind of remember the Titans, and I'll go ahead and just cheat. Number 1 on the best movies of all time, in my opinion, best sports movies, is Miracle. It's, again, Remember the Titans, because it happened in real life, it just makes it all the much sweeter. And it's just a perfect example of what it means to become a team and to work together as a team and to accomplish a goal as a team. And I think what makes it really cool too is a lot of those guys are still alive. They're in their 40s and 50s now. And they talk about how accurate it is. You know, you think a movie like that, and especially for how many swelling emotions it has, that it would be Hollywood, it would have gotten the Hollywood treatment. And you talk to them and they're like, no, that's exactly how it happened. That's what he said. That's how it happened. Okay. Let me check this. Something. Okay. Which brings us to the one that got y'all all hot and bothered. My favorite sports movie of all time. And again, I measure favorite by how many times I can rewatch it. I will never, ever, ever grow tired of watching The Replacements and watching Keanu Reeves get into that huddle and say, pain heals, chicks dig scars, glory lasts forever. It's been a pleasure to share the field of battle with you boys. Gosh, it's gonna make me cry just now thinking about it. You can fight me, but I'm right. Okay, so we were really pleased this week to be joined by Kevin Camps. He is the new creator of... What is that? Okay. We were really pleased this week to be joined by Kevin Camps. Kevin and I have known each other for a while. We used to work together. And it's just been really a pleasure to watch him get hired into the Florida football program and then work his way up. And so much of what you see and consume about the Florida football team comes from Kevin and his team. They've done an excellent job, and especially this past year with spring practice having to go essentially all online and virtual. Kevin had really led the charge in that and making sure that fans and media alike could still feel like they're a part of practice, and even in a brand new way. So we really kind of wanted to hear from him and what that was like this past spring, and also just, you know, what it takes to become someone doing what you want to do to achieve your dream. So Kevin, we want to welcome you in now. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us here today on Double Coverage. Kevin, if you don't know, is the Director of Creative Media and Branding for Florida Football, a newly appointed role, but he has worked with the team for a couple of years. Kev, explain a little bit about what you do for those who don't know.
So basically, in this new role, it's kind of just kind of overseeing the look, the feel for our football team. And it's, you know, the simplest way to explain it. Previously, the heavy lifting I was doing was in the recruiting piece. For those who are familiar with me, I was doing it. That's how I came into the game. Was really into the recruiting piece, and so, you know, just transitioning to this new role, you know, we're kind of handling more oversight things, still focusing on some of the day-to-day things, but mainly just the oversight, the look, the feel, the leadership of our creative team, the messaging, what we want to do, handling social things. So just really just more of a leadership role for our creative team on the football staff.
So the man in charge, basically.
I wouldn't say that. Not too much.
For those that sort of have just followed Florida football more from the outskirts, you really didn't come into their view until this spring. And now it feels like probably any Florida football fan knows who Kevin Camps is, just simply because of you've been at the forefront of the spring practice coverage. Of course, COVID has limited how we can cover and show spring practice, but y'all really jumped into it and found a way around it. Take us through those meetings. How did it come about to decide, hey, we're going to put everything on Instagram Live. Kevin and Lee are going to be the ones running it. This is how we're going to do it.
Well, so last year, prior to COVID and us quarantining, this was something that we wanted to do just to kind of give our fans a different experience for those who can't get to practice. You know, we do the open practices and do those things. So it was just kind of a thought we had last year. And then unfortunately, you know, things occurred across our country that kind of limited that and limited any access fans could have to the program. And so this year we came around and it's like, hey, we want to do this again. And then, you know, Coach Mullen kind of had the same idea. He wanted to show. And so that's how we kind of married it together. And so, you know, each day, you know, Lee and I would just speak like, hey, I'm going to cover this. You're going to cover that. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues on our side that kind of prevented us from continuing. So we just chose to go in a different direction so we wouldn't produce a poor product for our fans. But, you know, in the time that we did do it, we had a great time. And, you know, we just get together, talk about, and then former players would jump on and, you know, we would just have them talking and they were DMing like, hey, when can I get on? And then, you know, former alumni, those that didn't even play football, like Aaron and Titus and, those guys would just jump on, and it was great, and it was an enjoyable time, and I think it's something that we can build off of in the future. If we don't get full stadiums this year, if we're kind of in the same way, yesterday they kind of made some changes, but if there's, if we're kind of in that same wave where we can't have full capacity, this is something that we could potentially do for our fans who can't get to town or who still don't feel comfortable coming to games.
Do you think maybe even before COVID, like you said, y'all were talking about doing this, that with just the way the world and the way that we consume things are moving, that if a team doesn't have a strong social media presence, they lose part of their fan base?
I think so, because social is people are just consuming it at a crazy rate, especially now being in their homes, and there's still places that are still quarantining, and it's just a platform that any program has to maximize, and if you're not, you're kind of losing your fan base, you're losing in recruiting, and your ability to just communicate to the masses. In the past it was emails, it was mail, and those things aren't just instant. Like social is just an instant, grab the moment, capture it, and and your fans can just consume all of it and always feel a part of the program.
Before I continue down that road, because I do think that's interesting, I'm going to hop back. In spring practice, like you said, it gave fans a different look. You were kind of getting up into the drills sometimes. It was kind of nice because we got to see more defensive line drills than we normally do at an open practice, because they're usually on the other side of the field.
Right.
Was there, don't get anybody in trouble, but was there anything that maybe you heard or like got run over where you thought, oh, I've never seen that in spring practice before?
Well, it was always something every day with different moments. It's just, it's always interesting seeing the young guys adjust and how they handle, like in high school, it's like, it's all about you, you got the stars, you got all this thing. And then you come into this program and like, you're just another guy, like you're playing with the best of the best, and just seeing young guys adjust, like every day it was always something. And, whether it was the young D lineman trying to adjust to the weight program and the conditioning and hard going 2-hour practices, and just watching them just like, ooh, this is tough, and just adjusting to that, like, and seeing like the young quarterbacks, like the speed of the game just is so much faster, and just watching them adjust, and even the older guys, just different moments, just watching like Emery, and like have to now step into this role where you're like, hey, I'm the guy now, it's like we just pushed on a Heisman Trophy finalist, and now I'm like the guy, and just watching them adjust to different coachings. And when you like, really, it's just this whole thing, especially this year as we're like transitioning out of kind of like a the Pitts and the Tony and the Trask era is like gone, and now we're like a brand new team and new coaches, and it's great to be around. So just really just seeing all of that kind of come together, and because normally you didn't have a spring last year, and you didn't see some of the things that you normally would see, but this year it's been really cool. Been really watching the guys evolve over the 15 practices.
So that being said, who's somebody that we don't necessarily know about yet or haven't thought about that stood out to you and thought that they'll know him by the end of the season?
Oh gosh.
You can do 3 if that helps.
I could do 3. Okay. Yeah. Let me see.
I'll give you a lot of guys. Wiggle room.
I'm really excited about, honestly, the new transfer guys. Antonio and Daquan, they've come in and just hit the ground running. They've done a phenomenal job just plugging in and just working hard and just really adapting to the culture that Coach Mullen and his staff is building. They've done a great job coming in. All the young guys, especially I'm really proud of the young guys just coming in and just adjusting. Desmond's done a phenomenal job just adjusting to the program. I'm excited about Dejan, Nick. I could really go down the entire list, but just watching these guys grow and just seeing them from for being in the recruiting side for a year or two with these guys and just seeing their progression, but and just not. I'm excited about Nick Elksness, putting on that 84 after probably one of the greatest tight ends to ever play college.
That's a big shadow.
On that number, it's not easy. But, he's a great young man, and all these kids have great families. And so I'm really excited about that. And I think you're going to see some of these young guys contribute. Jason Marshall's great. Just all these guys are just about their business and just plugging in. So I'm excited about the young guys and their contribution to the program. You know, it doesn't mean they're going to come in and play every down, but, you know, just their everyday work and just laying and continuing to pour that foundation for their individual careers, as well as the program, is big. And, you know, just for the success of the program long term.
Kev, I think one of the most impressive things about this spring, I thought I knew a lot about these guys. You were just like spouting off names and hometowns and birthdays and grandmother's maiden names. And I'm like, goodness gracious. I know you spent some time in the recruiting office, but Will Muschamp told me one time, he said, I know the birthday and the mother's birthday of every recruit I'm going after this year, but I can't remember my own anniversary most times. I know you remember your anniversary because you posted about it. But do you feel like do you study, or is it just because that's what you're immersed in the whole time? Do you feel like you know random stuff about these guys that you would probably never need until, of course, you went on Instagram Live and
actually
needed it?
It's kind of a little bit of both. You know, being a lifelong Gator, I probably swim a little deeper in the waters than some. So, you know, just trying to figure out everything. But in the recruiting process, you know, as you know, college football's in this NIL era that we're coming upon. And so you're trying to find out different things about the guys. You're studying social media, their Instagrams, their Twitters, and, you know, kind of monitoring that day to day. Because, you know, that's kind of part of my new role, just kind of monitoring and helping the guys with that piece of the program. And, you know, just being in it, we're sending graphics, we're sending content, we're trying to gather information. So you do come across some weird information time to time that you would share with the guys, and you're just trying to be there. At the end of the day, that's a part of building relationships, is learning one another and learning about the guys. And so, you know, if they're coming on their OV, if I'm studying and looking, and you're trying to create conversation pieces or find common interests in anything, whether it's, you know, things about their faith or things about their family, their favorite color. If they're like Donovan McMillan's like a huge shoe guy, like he loves shoes. And there's some people in the office, Kiwan, like big shoe guy. So it's like a great talking points, and, you know, and just different things like that, just interest the guys, and finding out where they're from. And like Dejon Reynolds, you know, played in Georgia, but he's an Illinois guy, you know, Chief being from Chicago, but he played in, like, just different stories like that fans find interest in. And then at the same time, just, I think it's important when we start talking about building the brands of our players in the NIL era, you know, storytelling is going to be, you know, very important piece of that. And so, you know, I love to find that out so we can help guys tell their stories, as well as, you know, inform the fans on different things, just so they understand that they're not just between the lines football helmet guys. You know, when they take the helmets off, they're players, they're people, they have stories and families too.
That makes so much. I don't know why I didn't think about the fact that with the NIL, their creative brand is going to be more important than ever. Like,
absolutely,
that makes complete sense. Like I said, I know you're busy. I won't keep you too much longer.
No, you're good. You're
fine. One of the things, especially with this new role, I think it's really cool just to hear from you. Whenever, like, I get student journalists or you know, younger people or people that are just getting into the business, and they think, all I want to do is work in football, and they reach out and they say, do you have any advice? I've kind of gotten into this sales pitch now where I say, let me tell you about this guy, Kevin, because Kevin, you and I worked together years ago at another site, and you were just doing this on the side. Yep. And just kind of kept at it, and eventually got hired by the Florida football office. And so that's sort of my pitch, is like, continue to work. And for as hard as you work at finding a job, work even harder at your craft. Absolutely. Because if you become the best at what you do, somebody will find you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just give us like a little, you know, even if it's just the Cliff Notes version of how you got started to get to where you are now.
Well, initially, when we were working together previously, my initial thought was I wanted to write. And, you know, we joke in the office every now and then that, guys, I was a writer before I was a graphic designer, you know. And so, you know, I was writing, covering Coach McElwain in that era of Florida football. And, you know, was just kind of doing graphics on the side. Then all of a sudden, you know, writing, it just didn't, it was fun, but it just didn't evolve like it did for me. And, you know, just doing the graphics piece and creativity, you know, for me, it's all creative writing. You know, I was in high school, I was in art classes and doing all that thing. So I just love creativity and in sports. And, you know, kind of back when I was in high school, art and sports, like, it wasn't what it is now. So,
Right.
um,
They were separate.
yeah, it was supposed to be separate. Like, people just didn't realize how you can marry sports athletics with art and storytelling and like tell all, and it's like the perfect marriage almost. And you know, and that just kind of led to me just getting better. And then like recruiting graphics really just like erupted. And that kind of became a thing. And, you know, and one of my friends on that, you know, reached out to me on staff, you know, under Coach Mullen when he arrived. And, you know, it was just great, and just came in and was kind of doing stuff on the side and just kind of helping out wherever I can. And then started the Gators digital thing, which really just started because, you know, I wanted to learn new things, try new things, and see how fans would take to it. And that kind of blew up. And I would just say to anybody, you know, if you have a passion, I think about like the Steve Jobs of the world. Like, if you're passionate about something, you know, you pursue it, you do that, you know, the Martin Luther Kings of the world, like whatever your thing is, whatever your passion is, whatever you feel like can help people, impact people, you know, go after it, do it. There's so many resources out there to perfect your craft, and it's all free. It doesn't cost money to do. And so, you know, that's why, like, for me, people may reach out to me and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And because I knew that's what I wanted and desired. And so I'm always willing to just give out advice and thoughts and tell my story, because I know, you know, first and foremost, without God, I couldn't do it. I couldn't have accomplished it. But, you know, just put in the hard work, like you said, and, you know, you'll be able to reach goals. And don't, and I always say, don't despise small beginnings. You know, you got to start somewhere. And as you start, you know, you'll have challenges and get discouraged at times, but you just keep fighting forward. You know, just like we see in our football program, year in and year out, there's going to be adversity, but you just continue to fight forward, and you hope you can, you know, accomplish something great in the end.
So what's next for the Florida football digital team? Now that you're
Well, just last week, I mean, we got some big things coming, and just like probably any creative team across the country, we're still navigating the whole NIL thing. That's going to completely change, I believe. Creative departments in the programs that really jump on it early and really dedicate the resources to it will be the ones who excel in that area. There's still a lot we don't know about it, so we're still navigating those waters and continuing to build out our team here. We just released the YouTube show a couple weeks ago, and I know you're familiar with that and helping with that, and we appreciate that as well. So we got a couple more episodes coming up. NFL draft, we're working on our NFL draft coverage, and they just recently opened up where they're actually going to have an event in Cleveland. So
yeah, I saw that.
So we're
like,
hoping
let me look up flight prices to Cleveland.
Yeah. so we're hoping we can find a way to, you know, bring our fans that coverage. Like a couple of years ago at the combine, we were able to send Randy, does a great job, and Mitch at the time, who was working with us out there, and had great coverage from there. So that's the type of things we want to do. But the big thing is what we're looking to do is really start beginning to tell our player stories. And you know, there's some, like, I was just sitting down, just listing all kind of different things we could tell about the guys. And it was probably what you were mentioning earlier, just kind of like, hey, why do you know all this stuff? You know, I don't know, but those are just great, looking to do that, continuing to enhance what we're doing on the recruiting side, from a graphic standpoint, a photography standpoint, you know, things in venue. So we're really preparing for the season, but I'm really excited about getting the opportunity to share our player stories and share a lot of things that the fans may not know. And it's not just the guys who we already know to be great players and have already been successful. I mean, there's great stories from guys that are walk-ons, great stories from guys that have never played it down here that can go on to do great things, like Clifford Taylor and his story. Like, he's just a walk-on, but now he's interning. He's got a great internship. He's gone viral on his TikTok. So, like,
right,
you know, and just sharing those stories. And Cliff's he's a great kid. I love Cliff. So if you're not following him on TikTok, go follow him.
And he factored into a lot of y'all's videos last year too, with the social justice.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. He was plugging in, really helped with the entire UAA. and sharing that message on social justice and BLM and different things like that. So he's not shy he's not camera shy at all.
You can't be in this business. Well, Kev, I love that. That's great, because that's kind of exactly what it's all about, and that's
Absolutely
what Jackie and I really kind of wanted to start this with too, was just storytelling and giving you an inside look at these guys. Congratulations on the new role.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
More than deserved. I'm so proud of you. You're killing it. Your entire team. I know we have. Well, thank you so much again for all your time. Thank you so much to Kevin for joining us. We hope to talk to him again as we get closer to the season, maybe even be joined by a couple other people from his team as they kind of explain what it takes to produce the content that you as fans love consuming. As you might know, or if you don't, this show is also done in conjunction with the Buddy Martin Show and Buddy Martin Media. Jackie and I usually join Buddy on Tuesday nights to do his show on Facebook Live and Spotify. I went on that show earlier this week and talked with Graham Hall of the Gainesville Sun just to find out what his opinion was of someone who covered the Florida basketball men's team on a day-to-day basis, of what happened in the NCAA Tournament, how the Gators were able to get knocked out by Oral Roberts so soon, and what this means for the future of the program. So I wanted to share that conversation with you here today on Double Coverage. One day Mullen threatened to put us, I don't know if you remember this, Graham, but one day Mullen threatened to put us in the Oklahoma drills. I was like, that's not a fight you want to see.
Who would you want to be matched up with? Let's be honest.
On the Gator beat?
Yep.
There's no way to say anybody without getting in trouble.
Yeah, because they're all listening. You got to pick someone. You got to pick someone older, a little more.
Okay, go ahead, Kassidy. Bring it to me. I know.
I have somebody in my head, but I'm not saying it. I have somebody in my head that I think I could beat. Maybe not off pure, maybe not off power, but I think I could get mean and beat them.
I like
I'll
it.
text you later who it is.
All right. Please do. I won't tell anyone.
Graham. Yeah, right. Graham, let's talk a little basketball. Obviously, the Gator season is over. Whether that's good or bad, I guess depends on matter of opinion. But as Buddy was saying when you came on, it almost seemed like there was, if they were going to lose to Oral Roberts, that they intentionally would have to change their game plan. You watch a lot of Gator basketball. You cover it pretty much daily for the Gainesville Sun. Did you see anything happen in that game this past weekend that differed from their normal game plan with 10 minutes left in a game when they're up by double digits?
I guess the way to answer your question is it wasn't the first time that they'd slowed down the offense late in the second half. And Mike White has tried to use the bench. He gets criticized, I think, fairly a good bit and maybe unfairly a little bit for how he tries to use different rotations to give his guys a breather. But there are really no excuses, I don't think, for not having the legs to compete with Oral Roberts. And I think that's something a lot of people are pointing out. But this was a situation where they went to doing a lot of what they'd done throughout the season, which was slow it down, even when the transition offense had worked so well for the first 20 minutes and even the first 10 minutes there in the second half, getting Trey Mann going, that to see them slow it down was a little bit kind of predictable, but also a little bit upsetting in a sense, because as people have noted, the analytics show that this Florida team does not turn the ball over as much when they're playing faster. And to hear Mike White come out and say that we thought we could slow it down to limit the mistakes that we were making in the first half, and they were making a whole lot of them. I mean, they had 12 turnovers there in the first half and finished with 20. So the numbers would show maybe they did turn it over a little bit less by slowing it down. But before that, that's not something that we had really seen be indicated. So I was a little bit taken aback by that, I guess you could say. But I don't think they did too much differently. They kind of beat themselves, which we have seen at times this season before.
And then for Trey Mann to only take 2 shots in the final 3:38 of the game, is that Trey Mann or a coaching thing, in your opinion?
Well, I think you got to give Oral Roberts some credit because they knew that the ball was obviously going to be in Trey Mann's hands and that he was going to be looking to take a shot because they were taking away a lot of what Florida liked to do on the offensive end. I mean, I was actually surprised that Noah Locke got a clean look in a transition 3 there in the last minute, because that has to be something that's on their scouting report. Noah Locke's one of the best transition 3-point shooters in the entire country, and to get him an open look, that's almost as egregious in my mind as not fouling up 3, which Florida didn't do in that Virginia Tech game, and giving Allen, a wide open 3-pointer. Noah Locke in the corner, transition 3-pointer, he's going to hit that 8 out of 10 times, and to not miss that, I mean, they had to be breathing a sigh of relief that he didn't hit that there. So I understand why Mike White would go to that shot, but yeah, I would think that you would be able to create some more opportunities for Trey Mann to get your offense going when they took away a lot of what you were doing, but they didn't do that. I think instead they decided to pound it down low to Colin Castleton, which I did think was a smart decision. I wrote about it in my advance in the Gainesville Sun. I thought that going down low on a team that really didn't have a true center, I think you could say, no offense to Kevin Obenar, because he obviously went off against the Gators with 28 points, but they didn't really have a true low post threat who could stop Colin Castleton. So I was surprised that they didn't really pound it inside early to him. They did go towards it late there, and that's why he was able to get that double-double, but I was a little bit surprised that they didn't do that more often. But it did make sense that late in the game they did go to him, because that's what the scouting report suggested. So obviously with Trey Mann, the way he started that second half, you would have liked for him to maintain that. I mean, he came out and had 19 points, I think, with 15 minutes left to play in the second half. It was looking kind of like to me that he was going to go off the way he did against Tennessee in the SEC tournament when he had that career high 30. But he kind of got held in check the rest of the way. And I talked to him after the game, and he said that give Oral Roberts some credit. Again, they did a good job doubling him on the high post, and when he came around screens and taking away, like I said, a lot of what he liked to do, they did a good job in the scouting report.
Oral Roberts, I think it is important to point out, leading scorer in the country, third best 3-point team in the country, second best free throw shooting team in the country. So they were going to come out and put up points. It was going to be a little bit of a shootout for a bit there. But like you said, Florida should have, at the end of the day, been able to outlast them based off pure talent alone. But then getting to around that 10-minute point, again, like you said, it's almost predictable. You knew that was going to happen with this Florida team, because it's happened in so many games this year. They get to around that point and things slow down. Whether or not the numbers say it should be or shouldn't, is that indicative of how this team is always going to play? Essentially what I'm asking is, does that fall on Mike White? And because that is the question, is this going to be the identity of Florida under Mike White? Are you going to get to that 10-minute point and always know the opponent's about to make a run because they're about to slow it down?
I think that, to answer your question, it does fall on the coaching. I think that because they're in control of the tempo, especially when you have the lead, you're in control of the tempo. That's just kind of a plain answer. But I think that, to answer your question, it's a game of runs and swings, and
right.
You're going to have teams that are desperate to win and come back and do some things that take you off their guard when they're facing a huge deficit. And we've seen Florida do the exact same thing, like they did in the first half of that game against Virginia Tech when they were trailing by double digits. You saw a Florida team that rallied from an early 21-11 hole. And I'm sure that there were some Virginia Tech fans that came away saying, hey, why didn't we put them away in the first half when we had a chance to do that? And that's just kind of the game of basketball. Yeah, that's the perspective. But I think what is more concerning to fans and even maybe, analysts nationally is that this has become a trend for Florida on the national stage. You can go back to, we can even go back to Mike White's first run in the NCAA tournament, the Wisconsin game, where Chris Chiozza hits the amazing shot that we all remember. But what we forget is that with 6 minutes left in the game, Florida was up by 11 points. So really that game went to overtime, and it shouldn't have in a lot of people's minds, and only gets erased from our memory because of the heroics of Cheese. And you look at the Kentucky game last year when Florida was up, 57-39 there at the start of the second half. And then you see John Calipari get upset and the Wildcats come back and then beat that Florida team on senior night was pretty surprising. So this is possibly becoming a pattern where the Gators have failed to put away games where they've led by double digits, and that's something that I'm sure that this coaching staff is going to look at in the offseason and how they can maybe adjust their philosophy or find a way to get an offensive boost in the last 10 minutes rather than thinking that they have to slow it down and give their guys a breather because they ran them out of gas in the first 30 minutes.
I think that with this year and with the adversity that came with this year, a lot of people are going to get a pass, understandably so. And I like Mike White. I've always been a Mike White fan just from, who he is as a person and how he carries himself and how he sort of shapes this team. That being said, it's hard to deny that there has been a stalemate with Florida basketball. So, in your opinion, what does this team look like next year, top to bottom, coach down to the roster? Who stays, who goes, who heads to the NBA? How much attrition is there and how much does it look the same?
This may not be the answer that I think a lot of fans want to hear. Let me go ahead and say that, but I think that the main attrition will be Trey Mann, and obviously we have to 1 and 2 right away. Your philosophy or find a way to get an offensive boost in the last 10 minutes rather than thinking that they have to slow it down and give their guys a breather because they ran them out of gas in the first 30 minutes.
I think that with this year and with the adversity that came with this year, a lot of people are going to get a pass, understandably so. And I like Mike White. I've always been a Mike White fan just from, who he is as a person and how he carries himself and how he sort of shapes this team. That being said, it's hard to deny that there has been a stalemate with Florida basketball. So, in your opinion, what does this team look like next year, top to bottom, coach down to the roster? Who stays, who goes, who heads to the NBA? How much attrition is there and how much does it look the same?
This may not be the answer that I think a lot of fans want to hear. Let me go ahead and say that, but I think that the main attrition will be Trey Mann, and obviously we have to await word on Keontae Johnson, but 1 and 2 right away, your best two players entering the season departing. I think that the transfer portal, the way that everything's heading right now, everyone's kind of getting a free pass heading into new programs. You will, I think, see some guys leave here in the next couple of weeks, and you'll see some guys join the program like you saw last year with Colin Castleton, which obviously a huge addition for Florida. And I have no doubt that they're going to do that right now. They have interviews set up throughout the week. They're meeting with the Boston College kid, whose name escapes me right now, sadly, tomorrow, actually, for a virtual visit. So they're going to use the transfer portal to go out there and try and improve because they're only signing one prospect. But, as for Mike White, to answer, I think, the main part of your question, which everyone seems to want to debate about after every single game in a 27-game season, which doesn't make too much sense to me because nothing's going to happen until the end of the season if anything happens, because you said it, they're kind of getting a free pass, not only with COVID, but with the Keontae Johnson situation, making the second round of the tournament with Keontae Johnson going out. I know that there's some fans who still, that's not good enough in their eyes, but in the context of things nationally, when you look at it from an outsider perspective, there's not a team out there that can say that they lost the conference's preseason player of the year and still made it out of the first round. That's just how it boils down. And if I came out here right now and told you that Mike White is going to get calls from other programs, everyone would believe that based on what he's done. The fact that Florida in the last 4 years is one of just 6 teams to make it out of the first round since 2017. There are some teams in the Pac-12, Arizona, Utah that want to be good, and they think that Mike White is still a coach who has his best coaching ahead of him, and he's going to get some interest from other programs. That's just my belief. And if he won't get fired, if anything, I think that another program may want to hire him, and he's valued higher elsewhere than I think the fan base, who is still craving the next Billy Donovan, is after. So we'll find out here. It's going to be an interesting offseason what happens here, because I think that he may have a few decisions to make as well, not only in the transfer portal, but with his future.
Right. Like you said, there is a lot on his resume that is encouraging and could very well still have his best ahead of him. It's an insatiable fan base. That's what makes it exciting. That's why we love it.
Yeah, that's
Graham,
for sure.
thank you for exactly. Thank you for coming on for a little bit tonight. I know you probably do this with Buddy, but go ahead and make sure everyone knows where they can find your work too.
Yeah, you can find my Twitter, GrahamHall _. You can find me at Gatorsports.com. We got a new podcast coming out tomorrow. I'll have a gymnastics feature a little bit later this week here, hopefully tomorrow night here if I get cracking. Some stuff this weekend. I'll be at the lacrosse game on Friday afternoon. So plenty of stuff. You can follow me on, like I said, on Twitter, GrahamHall _ Gatorsports.com, and the Gainesville Sun. Kassidy, this is always a pleasure catching up with you. You do a great job, buddy. You do a great job as well, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, of course. It feels like I haven't seen you in so long, Graham.
It's been forever. Once we
Let's
get
be
fully
friends.
vaccinated, then we'll
get back here soon. Let's be friends again soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you so much to Graham. That's not going to be the last time we see him. He will become a regular here on Double Coverage, I'm sure. Now, last thing, Florida football ended spring practice this past week. Saturday was their final scrimmage. They ended practice a month earlier than most guys. They ended practice on the same day that most teams were starting spring practice. That gives a whole extra month of worry, I guess is the best way to put it for these coaches. Because when spring practice ends, coaches are essentially at that point handing their team over to the director of strength and conditioning, but more so they're handing it over to the players. And they're going to have to trust that the players are capable of arranging workouts, of arranging film sessions, of arranging throwing sessions, and keeping the ball rolling so that when they come back in the fall, they're ready. That means this year because the Gators lost a lot of leadership in Kyle Trask and also Trayvon Grimes. I know we talk a lot about Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney because of how dynamic they were, and they were, and not to discount their leadership at all, but Trey Grimes, for as good as he was as a downfield threat, the biggest loss the Gators lose with him going to the NFL was just his leadership. And so what does that look like now? And the Gators were able to retain some of that leadership with Zach Carter on the defense. But over these next, 5 months, that's an iffy time for coaches because they can't do anything where a football is involved with the players. So I asked Dan Mullen on Saturday after the scrimmage, what does he hope these next few months look like for his team? And this is what he had to say.
When you release them today, what's your message that you want them to do the next 4 or 5 months?
Well, I want the next week everybody to take a break. I want everybody to take a break, physically and mentally take a break, take a week off. To try to, refresh your motor, refresh everything. Everybody then has to understand there are very different levels of where they're at. We're going to have a great offseason, May, June, physically getting bigger, faster, stronger in a huge offseason. But everyone's at different levels. And one of the most critical things is learning how to develop. Because you can have guys come and say, Coach, I'm going to come in and watch film every day. Great. Do you know what you're watching? Are you able to watch film and realize when you made a mistake and how to correct that mistake? Do you know what to see, or am I just kind of watching it to watch it? So, guys, it's so critical for each individual to learn how to develop, where they're at in their career, and what the big things they need to go work on, right? And so you got a guy that's going into a fifth-year senior, right? You take Zach Carter, like what he's working on is going to be very maybe different than what Javon Dexter is working on. Even though there's some similarities, they're working on the same things, but they're also working on some different things because maybe I got to go get caught up to this level to work on some of the specifics. I'm working on some more general things that Zach already has kind of mastered. So. That's just I could get into, it's so specific with each person, but it's understanding where you're at and what you need to do and how you need to learn to develop, because we're not around them all the time. There's so much personal development going on, but if you don't know how to do it, okay, if you're not in there watching film and you don't know how to watch the film and what you're specifically looking for, you're not really developing. You're just, like I told our guys, you might as well be watching SpongeBob SquarePants, right? Or watching The Replacements. Like you're not, I don't know if you're getting much out of that.
Thank you again for joining Jackie and I on double coverage, or like I said, this week, Kassidy on single high coverage. Like I said again, we hope to have Jackie back with us next week. Jackie, we love you. We're praying for you. Come back to us soon. We'll see you next time.